fantasy football Matt Camp at the Matt Camp Fantasy Football Lead writer December 27, 2017 Bleacher Report/Getty Images. While most fantasy championships were decided in Week 16, some of you may still have a lot on the line in Week 17 or are just playing for a little extra fun. This is typically not a good time to decide your championship, as the final week of the season can be a minefield of playing time issues, with playoff spots and seeds already determined. However, only 3 of the playoff contenders are locked into seeds, and the NFL schedule has been adjusted to invite the most possible intrigue over the final Sunday of the regular season. The Philadelphia Eagles, No. 1 in NFC, Jacksonville Jaguars, number 3 in AFC, and Kansas City Chiefs, No. 4 in AFC, can't do anything to help or hurt their standing heading into the playoffs. While the Eagles may decide to play their offensive starters for at least some of Week 17 to get back on track after an ugly performance in Week 16, the Jaguars and Chiefs have every reason to rest their key players since both teams know they'll be hosting a game in the wild card round. The Los Angeles Rams can only be the number 3 or no. 4 seed in the NFC, so there's a real chance they rest key players. If you have Rob Gronkowski or Ben Roethlisberger, feel free to play them with confidence. The New England Patriots and Pittsburgh Steelers are still battling for the top seed in the AFC. Here's the first look at points per reception, PPR, rankings for Week 17. These will change throughout the week and up to Sunday's action as we get more information about injuries and limitations, so make sure to bookmark this page for my full rankings in both PPR and non-PPR formats. Jimmy Garoppolo is on fire. Jason O. Watson/Getty Images better than usual. Jimmy Garoppolo, SF. Adlar, you had every right to be scared of Garoppolo in Week 16 with a matchup against the league's best pass defense in the Jacksonville Jaguars. Instead, he completed 21 of 30 passes for 242 yards and 2 touchdowns with an interception and added a 1-yard rushing touchdown in a win. Garoppolo led an offense that scored the most points against the Jaguars this season. In 4 starts, he's helped the team win 4 games and been a huge boost to fantasy teams. During the 4-game winning streak, he's the No. 8 QB with 66.2 fantasy points and 16.6 fantasy points per game. Garoppolo and the 49ers have an average matchup in Los Angeles with the Rams, so keep using him with confidence. Concern Nick Foles, PHI, versus Dull. Even though the Philadelphia Eagles clinched the top seed in the NFC with their win over the Oakland Raiders on Monday night, Foles did not play well in his second start since taking over for Carson Wentz, according to Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk. Head coach Doug Pederson was asked about playing his starters after Monday's win and said, "I'll evaluate that tomorrow when we get in and see where we're at injury-wise. I might have more information for you tomorrow, but it will probably be more like Wednesday before I finally make a decision on who we play." Foles went 19 of 38 for 163 yards and a touchdown with an interception against the Raiders. He could play in Week 17 but likely not for the whole game. Jared Goff, La, versus SF. Goff's fantasy status could take a major hit if head coach Sean McVay follows through on plans to rest starters in Week 17, according to Alden Gonzalez of ESPN.com. The Rams have already won the NFC West but can't move into one of the top 2 seeds. No matter what happens against the San Francisco 49ers, they will host a playoff game in the opening round. Find a replacement for Goff. Avoids Alex Smith, KC. At DN, the Kansas City Chiefs won the AFC West and will be the No. 4 seed in the AFC. Their game with the Denver Broncos has no effect on their standing, which means Smith doesn't have to play. Head coach Andy Reid has a history of resting his players in similar situations. Blake Bortles, Jack, at 10. The Jacksonville Jaguars are locked into the No. 3 seed in the AFC, so they will host a game in the opening round of the playoffs. The Jaguars don't have incentive to risk Bortles for much of their game against the Tennessee Titans. Sleeper Joe Flacco, Bell, versus Cinder. Baltimore Ravens are 1 win from clinching a spot in the playoffs after they defeated the Indianapolis Colts 23-16 in Week 16. They've won 5 of their last 6 games and scored at least 23 points in each of those games. Flacco has been a big part of that run, which is why he's the No. 12 fantasy QB in the last 6 weeks and the No. 5 fantasy QB in the last 4 weeks with 74.6 fantasy points and 18.7 fantasy points per game. Flacco will get a crack at a Cincinnati Bengals defense that has allowed the 12th most fantasy points to quarterbacks in the last 4 games. Whether you're steaming quarterbacks or need a cheap daily quarterback, Flacco is worth a shot. Look for Alex Collins to get back on track in Week 17. Joe Sargent/Getty Images. Better than usual. Alex Collins, Bell, vs. St. Collins' play has dipped at the worst time after he carried the Baltimore Ravens offense for much of the season, after toting the ball just 12 times for 19 yards in Week 15. He had 18 carries for only 51 yards in a Week 16 win over the Indianapolis Colts. Luckily, Collins has been uncharacteristically busy as a receiver in the last 2 weeks with 8 receptions for 48 yards on 12 targets. That doesn't seem like much, but he posted just one other game with at least 3 receptions this season. The Ravens can punch their ticket to the playoffs with a win against the Cincinnati Bengals. Over the last 4 weeks, only the Buffalo Bills have allowed more fantasy points to running backs than the Bengals. Put your faith back in Collins. Concern Todd Gurley too, La, vs. SF because the Los Angeles Rams are locked into either the 3rd or 4th seed in the NFC. Head coach Sean McVay indicated he could rest starters, and that may include Gurley, according to Alden Gonzalez of ESPN.com. This will be a situation to monitor throughout the week as more information becomes available, but you should start making other plans to prepare for Gurley's potential absence. Jay Ajayi, PHI, vs. Dal Ajayi had one of his busiest games as a member of the Philadelphia Eagles in Week 16. He carried 14 times for 52 yards and added 2 receptions for 21 yards and a touchdown on 3 targets while playing 41.2% of the snaps. For Pro Football Reference, he's been the clear leader in the backfield for the last month, which is exactly why the Eagles acquired him. However, they are already the top seed in the NFC, so while Nick Foles struggled in Week 16 and could play in Week 17, Ajayi wouldn't be a lock to play against the Dallas Cowboys. Plus, the Eagles have a deep enough backfield that they don't need to risk Ajayi. Keep an eye on this situation throughout the week. Avoids Leonard Fournette. Jack, at 10. Fournette has had ankle and quad injuries this season, so he'd be a prime candidate to get some rest in Week 17 with the Jacksonville Jaguars set as the No. 3 seed in the AFC. Don't bank on him to contribute anything significant. Kareem Hunt, KC. DN Hunt got hot again in the fantasy playoffs and was a big reason why the Kansas City Chiefs won the AFC West, which locked them into the 4th seed in the AFC. The Chiefs will host a game in the wild-card round, and based on head coach Andy Reid's history of resting players in meaningless games, Hunt may not see much action in Denver against the Broncos. Sleeper Derrick Henry, 10, vs. Jack during a Week 16 loss to the Los Angeles Rams. DeMarco Murray rushed for 48 yards and a touchdown on 15 carries and caught 3 of 4 targets for 11 yards but exited with a knee injury, according to Adam Schefter